Hey everyone, are you ready to go on a deep dive?
Always. Where are we going this time?
This time, we're diving into Eckhart Tolle's The Power of Now,
Oh, interesting.
a classic.
Yeah, a classic. It is. It's all about, well, kind of the core idea is, finding enlightenment and freedom from suffering.
Right, by living fully in the present moment.
Yes, exactly. Living fully in the present moment. And, it's easier said than done. It is definitely easier said than done. But what I think is so interesting is that, Tolle, he had like a pretty dramatic backstory. Like, he was
Wasn't he like super depressed?
He was like suicidal depression, and then like literally overnight had this profound spiritual awakening.
Wow, talk about a transformation.
Yeah. So we're going to kind of unpack some of his key takeaways, but also, maybe highlight some of the most intriguing,
Juicy bits.
yeah, the juicy bits,
Yeah,
the things that make you go, whoa, I never thought of it that way.
I love those.
Right.
The mind-blown moments.
Yes. So this overnight transformation,
Yeah.
how does he actually describe it in the book?
Well, he talks about this night.
It's kind of hard to imagine, right? Like going from that level of despair to utter enlightenment.
Right. It's
Right.
hard to wrap your mind around.
Yeah.
But he talks about this night, he's consumed by these really intense thoughts, dark thoughts.
Yeah.
And he's feeling like, I can't even live with myself.
Oh, wow.
And then he has this sudden insight where he asks himself this question, am I one or two?
Am I one or two?
Yeah. And it's like he's realizing that, he's become so identified with his mind.
Like all those thoughts swirling around.
Yeah, all those swirling thoughts and that
Yeah.
it's become like a separate entity.
Almost like a tormentor.
Yes.
Mm.
Almost like a tormentor.
Wow.
And that's like the seed of this concept of D. So it's that false self that we create when we get completely caught up in all that mental chatter.
So it's not just that we think a lot, it's that we start to believe that we are our thoughts.
That's it.
We merge with them completely.
We completely merge, and then we lose sight of, of who we really are
Mhm.
beneath all that, like all that mental noise.
Yeah, all that static. And,
Yeah.
Tolle takes this even further. He says that, when we do that,
Mm-hmm.
when we identify so completely with the mind, it actually becomes like a disease.
Wow, a disease. That's a strong word.
It is. Yeah, it is. It's a pretty strong statement.
Yeah.
But he compares it to cancer.
Cancer.
Yeah.
Oh,
Kind of a jarring analogy.
that is jarring.
But it kind of makes sense when you think about it.
Okay.
So cell division, it's normal, it's
The
healthy.
process, yeah.
But when it goes haywire, when the cells forget they're part of this larger organism and they just keep multiplying unchecked,
Uh-huh.
then you get a tumor, a disease.
Right.
And so Tolle's saying it's the same with the mind, It's a useful tool, but when it's constantly churning, creating this nonstop internal dialogue, it kind of takes over.
Right.
And we lose touch with the present moment. We lose touch with our true selves.
Yeah.
And that's where all the suffering comes in.
Okay, I'm starting to see where this is going.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of people would probably say, hey, my thoughts aren't making me sick.
Right. I think all the time it's normal.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So how do we know when our minds have gone from being, these helpful tools to becoming, a problem?
Well, Tolle would probably point to the presence of something he calls the pain body.
The pain body.
Yeah. Remember that from the book?
Vaguely. Give me a refresher.
Yeah. So it's this heavy energy field we kind of carry around with us,
Okay.
made up of all our past traumas, hurts, negative emotions.
Oh.
And it kind of feeds on pain, keeping us stuck in those, those repetitive cycles of suffering.
Oh, so this is kind of like, how you have certain thoughts or feelings that seem to have like a life of their own?
Yes.
It's like almost an entity that kind of takes over.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's the pain body in action.
Wow. Okay, that actually makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've definitely had times where I felt like I was being hijacked by my emotions,
Uh-huh.
Like I couldn't reason my way out of them.
Right.
It's not like I enjoyed feeling that way, but it was almost like addictive.
Oh, yeah.
Like I couldn't stop myself.
It can be like a vicious cycle.
Totally.
Yeah.
So is Tolle saying that the pain body is what's keeping our minds stuck in overdrive?
Yeah.
Like making us sick?
He definitely sees a strong connection there.
Okay.
He argues that the pain body thrives in unconsciousness.
Okay.
So the more we're lost in our thoughts, disconnected from the present moment,
Uh-huh.
the more power it has over us. Like he says in the book, Everything is shown up by being exposed to the light. And whatever is exposed to the light itself becomes light.
Oh,
It's a
yeah.
powerful image, right?
Yeah.
And it means that the more we become aware of our pain body, the more present we are,
Uh-huh.
the less power it has over us. We literally transform that negative energy through conscious awareness.
Okay, I'm with you so far.
Hmm.
But now I'm wondering, what exactly does he mean by being present?
Right.
Because it's a phrase we hear all the time.
Yeah.
But what does it actually look like in practice?
Yeah.
Is it about, trying to think happy thoughts all the time?
Not quite. It's not about forcing ourselves to feel a certain way
Okay.
or ignoring negative emotions.
Okay.
It's much more about radical acceptance of the present moment exactly as it is without judgment.
Okay.
And that's really where the title of the book comes in.
Right.
The power of now.
The power of now.
The more we're dwelling in the past, replaying old hurts,
Uh-huh.
or anxiously anticipating the future, the more we're denying the only moment we actually have control over this present moment.
Right.
And that, according to Tolle, is a major source of our suffering.
Okay, so it's less about manipulating our thoughts and more about shifting our focus.
Yes.
Like, instead of getting lost in that mental chatter, we bring our attention to what's happening right now,
Yeah.
in our bodies, in our surroundings, our direct experience.
You got it.
Okay.
And he even encourages readers to start practicing present moment awareness in the most ordinary activities.
Like what? Give me an example.
Like washing your hands.
Washing your hands.
Yeah. Or taking a walk.
Really?
He argues that even those mundane tasks can become much more fulfilling when we approach them with full presence.
Mm.
It's about shifting our focus from just like getting things done to actually being present in the experience itself.
So even something as simple as like, washing the dishes should be a doorway into this deeper awareness.
Absolutely. It's about bringing that same quality of attention, that same sense of presence to everything we do.
Wow. Okay.
And that's where things start to get really interesting because Tolle doesn't stop there.
Okay.
He goes on to explore what this practice of presence can reveal about, or about our true nature, about the very nature of reality itself.
Now I'm really intrigued.
Right.
So is this where the concept of surrender comes in?
Yes. Surrender.
Because I remember that being a big part of the book, but honestly, I wasn't quite sure what he meant by it.
Yeah, it's a big one.
Yeah.
And it can be tricky.
Okay.
So let's dive into what he really means by surrender
Okay.
and how it connects to this idea of, finding true peace and freedom from suffering.
All right. I'm ready.
All right, let's go. So surrender, right? It can be a little tricky because it's not about giving up on your goals or becoming passive.
Okay.
Think of it more like aligning yourself with the flow of life, like a sailboat adjusting its sails to the wind, right?
Tolle says that when we resist what is, when we fight against reality,
Yeah.
we create so much unnecessary suffering.
Okay, so I think I'm starting to see the difference. Like, it's not about becoming a doormat.
Yeah.
It's more about, like, choosing our battles wisely
Yes.
and recognizing that sometimes the most powerful thing we can do is let go.
Exactly. It's a subtle but profound shift in perspective.
Right.
And Tolle argues that it's actually through surrender, through releasing that need to control everything, that we access a different kind of power. A power that flows from that deeper dimension of ourselves that's connected to something much larger than our individual egos.
All right, I'm willing to give it a shot. But let's be honest.
Uh-huh.
There are times when being present and surrendering feels pretty much impossible.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Especially when we're dealing with really intense emotions like anger, fear, or sadness.
Like, what are we supposed to do when we're in the middle of an argument or we get, like, some bad news or we just wake up feeling anxious for no reason?
Yeah. Those are the tough ones.
Are we just supposed to surrender to those feelings and, like, let them take over?
That's a really important point, and it's where this concept of being an observer comes in.
Being an observer.
Yeah. Tolle isn't saying we should, suppress our emotions or pretend they're not there.
Okay.
It's more about acknowledging what's arising within us without letting it completely run the show.
Okay, so we're not trying to get rid of those feelings, but we're creating some space between ourselves and those emotions so we don't get, like, swept away by them.
Think of it like watching a movie. You can experience all the emotions of the characters without getting so caught up that you forget you're just watching a screen.
So we're not the actors in the movie, we're the audience.
Exactly. We're the audience.
That's a really helpful visual. I can see how that would take some of the sting out of those difficult emotions.
And by doing that, by becoming the observer, we create space for a different kind of response.
Okay.
When we're not so consumed by our emotional reactions,
Yeah.
we can access this deeper level of wisdom and clarity. We can respond to situations from a place of presence rather than just reacting from our past conditioning.
So instead of just blindly reacting to whatever life throws at us, we're taking a step back, creating some space, and then choosing how we want to respond.
You got it. It's about cultivating the sense of spaciousness within ourselves, even in the midst of challenging circumstances.
Okay.
And that spaciousness, that ability to observe without getting overwhelmed is what allows us to tap into, a deeper level of peace and wisdom.
Okay, this is making a lot of sense. But what about happiness?
Right.
I mean, everyone wants to be happy.
Of course.
Does Tolle think it's even possible to experience lasting happiness?
Yeah, if we're constantly surrendering and accepting everything that comes our way, even the bad stuff.
Now, that's where things get really interesting.
Okay.
Tolle suggests that true peace, which he sees as a deeper and more stable form of happiness, actually lies beyond the duality of happiness and unhappiness.
Wait, is he saying that happiness is an illusion?
Not exactly. It's more that, chasing after happiness as if it were some kind of external goal is setting ourselves up for disappointment.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Right. He reminds us that all things are impermanent. So clinging to any state, even happiness, inevitably leads to suffering when those conditions change.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's think about how many times have you, felt happy about something only to have that happiness fade away when the circumstances shifted?
All the time.
All the time. It's like, getting a new, I don't know, gadget or something. You're like, woohoo.
Yeah. And then, a few days later, you're just used to it. It's not that big of a deal.
Exactly. The novelty wears off.
Yeah. So it's not about denying happiness. It's about recognizing its fleeting nature and not making our whole sense of well-being dependent on it.
Precisely. It's about enjoying those moments of happiness without getting attached to them, without making our well-being dependent on external circumstances.
So how do we experience that deeper sense of peace that he's talking about?
He says it's about cultivating what he calls inner peace, that deep sense of stillness and contentment.
Right.
That's independent of what's going on around us.
Okay.
It's about being okay no matter what.
I could see how that would be incredibly freeing.
Yeah.
But it also sounds almost impossible in today's world.
Right.
With all the stress and the constant stimulation that we're bombarded with every day, how do we even begin to cultivate that kind of inner peace?
Well, Tolle argues that the key is to disidentify from our minds. Disidentify from our minds. Yeah. To recognize that we're not our thoughts or emotions.
Okay.
It's about accessing that deeper dimension of being that's always present.
Okay.
Regardless of what our minds are telling us.
And how do we do that?
He suggests a few different practices.
Okay.
But it all comes back to presence, to that ability to shift our focus from the constant chatter of our minds to the direct experience of the present moment.
So all this talk about presence and surrender, it's not about escaping the world or becoming passive. It's actually about becoming more fully engaged in life.
Yes.
Just in a different way.
Yeah.
It's about experiencing life from a deeper, more grounded place.
Exactly. And this shift in perspective, this move towards presence and surrender, it doesn't just impact our inner world.
Right.
It also changes how we relate to others.
Oh, interesting. So this is where Tolle's ideas about relationships come in.
Exactly.
Because I remember he had some pretty strong opinions about how our egos can mess up our relationships.
Oh, absolutely. He's pretty direct about how the ego can use relationships to avoid facing our own inner turmoil.
Oh.
For example, we might seek out partners who reinforce our pain body,
Okay.
unconsciously trying to fill a void with external validation.
So we end up kind of repeating the same unhealthy patterns over and over again.
It can definitely happen. We might try to change our partners, blame them for our unhappiness, or use them to fill an emptiness within ourselves.
Right.
And that's, that's where this concept of what Tolle calls enlightened relationships comes in.
Enlightened relationships. Okay.
Yeah.
Tell me more about this. What makes them different?
Well, enlightened relationships are characterized by presence, acceptance, and a deep respect for each other's individuality.
Okay.
It's about two whole individuals coming together, not to complete each other or fix each other's problems, but to share their journeys.
So it's about moving beyond that neediness and codependency that can sometimes plague relationships.
Yes. It's about recognizing that love isn't something we possess
Right.
or control, but a state of being that flows naturally when we're present and open.
That sounds beautiful, but also pretty challenging.
It definitely takes work.
Yeah.
But Tolle suggests that the rewards are well worth the effort.
Yeah.
He believes that enlightened relationships can become this powerful pathway to spiritual growth and awakening.
Okay, I'm definitely seeing the connections here, between presence, surrender, and relationships.
Yeah,
It's like they all kind of feed into each other.
they do.
But I'm still a little fuzzy on how all of this connects to this idea of the unmanifested.
Ah, yes, the unmanifested.
What is that exactly, and how do we access it?
That's a great question, and it's really the heart of what Tolle's getting at in The Power of Now. So let's shift gears and explore those portals to the unmanifested, those practices and experiences that can help us awaken to this deeper reality.
Okay, let's do it.
So the unmanifested sounds pretty mysterious, right?
It does. It really does. Is it like another dimension or a different state of consciousness?
Well, it's definitely a shift in perception, a way of experiencing reality that goes beyond our usual thinking minds. Toll describes the unmanifested as like the formless, timeless essence of being.
Oh,
It's what underlies all of creation, the source from which everything arises and to which everything returns.
so it's like the ground of being, the
Yeah.
foundation of everything.
Yeah.
But it's not something we can like see, touch, or even really think about directly.
Exactly. It's beyond thought, beyond form, beyond like the duality of subject and object. And yet Toll says it's closer to us than our own breath, always present, always available, if we know how to access it.
Okay, no, I'm really intrigued, but also a little intimidated.
Yeah.
How do we even begin to tap into something that's like beyond thought and form?
Well, that's where those portals come in.
Right, the portals.
Tully suggests several entry points, each offering, a unique way to experience this deeper dimension of reality. And, we've already touched on a few of them. The power of now, the practice of surrender, cultivating presence in everyday activities. But he also talks about a few other key portals, like connecting with our inner bodies and cultivating a sense of spaciousness.
Right, I remember him talking about those. But I think I need a refresher. What does it mean to connect with our inner bodies?
It's about, shifting our attention from, the external world and the constant chatter of our minds
Right.
to the felt sense of our bodies in this moment. And, it's not about focusing on the physical form itself, but on the subtle energy field that animates our bodies, the felt sense of aliveness that's always present within us.
It's not about analyzing our bodies or thinking about them. It's about like feeling them, sensing them from the inside out.
Exactly. And Tolle suggests that the inner body is our most direct link to the unmanifested, a gateway to experiencing that deeper dimension of being. He even guides readers through a visualization exercise, encouraging them to imagine a light radiating from within their bodies, growing brighter and more expansive with each breath.
I remember trying that exercise. It was surprisingly powerful. It's like you're shifting your awareness from the thinking mind to a deeper level of feeling and sensation.
And as we cultivate this inner body awareness, we begin to access this deeper level of stillness, of peace, of connection with, the source of life itself. It's like we're dropping out of our heads and into our hearts, into that place of pure being that's beyond thought and form.
So it's not about escaping our bodies, but about like going deeper into them, experiencing them as like a gateway to something more expansive.
Exactly. It's about inhabiting our bodies fully, experiencing them from the inside out. And as we do that, we begin to realize that we are not just our physical forms, but something much, much vaster, more expansive, more interconnected with all of life.
That makes a lot of sense. So if the inner body is one portal to the unmanifested, what are some of the others? I remember Tolle talking about spaciousness, but I'm not sure I fully grasped what he meant by that.
Spaciousness is another powerful gateway. And it has to do with becoming aware of, the space around us, the space between objects, the space that allows everything to exist. He even suggests, focusing on the space within a room, becoming aware of the emptiness, the nothingness that's always present, even in the midst of all the forms.
It's like we're shifting our focus from the objects themselves, like to the background, to the emptiness that kind of holds them.
Exactly. And as we do that, as we shift our attention from the forms to the space that holds them, we begin to tap into this deeper dimension of awareness. He calls this the space of no mind. That state of pure consciousness that's free from thought, free from the limitations of form and duality.
It's like we're expanding our awareness beyond the confines of our usual thinking minds,
Yeah.
tapping into something much, much larger, more expansive.
Exactly. And he suggests that this sense of spaciousness can be accessed not just through, visual awareness, but through sound as well. He talks about listening to silence, becoming aware of the gaps between sounds, the stillness that's always present beneath the noise of the world.
It's about tuning into like a more subtle frequency, a deeper level of perception that's available to us all the time, if we just know how to listen.
You're getting it. It's about cultivating the sense of inner spaciousness that allows us to experience the world in this more expansive, interconnected way. And the spaciousness isn't something we have to create. It's already there, always present. We just have to learn how to tune into it.
So we've got the inner body, the sensation of spaciousness. Are there any other portals we should know about?
Well, Tolle also talks about surrender as a powerful gateway to the unmanifested. And remember, surrender isn't about giving up or becoming passive.
Right.
It's about, letting go of resistance, allowing life to unfold without trying to control every outcome. It's about trusting that there's this deeper intelligence at work, even when things don't go according to our plans.
So it's about aligning with the flow of life, trusting that we're being guided even when things feel uncertain or chaotic.
Exactly. He even compares it to a deep lake. The surface might be choppy with waves and wind, but deep down the water is always calm and still. And he suggests that when we surrender, when we let go of our need to control, we tap into that deep stillness within, that sense of peace that's unaffected by the storms of life.
It's like we're accessing a deeper level of trust, a faith that everything is unfolding as it should. Even when we don't understand why.
Precisely. And when we surrender, we open ourselves up to this different kind of power, a power that flows from being, from that unmanifested source that's always present within us.
This all sounds incredibly transformative, but does Toll believe that everyone is capable of accessing these portals, of experiencing this kind of awakening?
He's definitely optimistic about human potential, and he believes that this deeper reality is available to everyone. But he also acknowledges that there are, obstacles to enlightenment, things that can block us from experiencing this deeper truth.
Like what are some of those obstacles?
Well, he talks a lot about the ego's resistance to change, The ego, that sense of self we've constructed around our thoughts and beliefs.
Right.
It wants to stay in control, even if it means, keeping us stuck in old patterns of suffering. So, there's often this fear of letting go of those familiar identities, even if they're no longer serving us.
And what about the pain body? Doesn't that also play a role in keeping us stuck?
Absolutely. The pain body, that dense energy field of past trauma and suffering can be, a major obstacle to awakening. It can keep us, trapped in these cycles of negativity, fear, and self-sabotage. So Tolle is very clear that, healing the pain body is an essential part of the spiritual journey.
So it's not about bypassing our pain or pretending it doesn't exist, but about facing it with courage and compassion and ultimately, transforming it into something more life-affirming.
Exactly. It's about, integrating those shadow parts of ourselves, those wounded places that we've been trying to avoid or deny. And it's through that process of, integration, of wholeness, that true freedom becomes possible.
So if we're willing to do the work, to face our fears and embrace our pain, we can access these portals to the unmanifested, to a deeper reality.
We can. And it's not about becoming someone else, but about discovering who we truly are beneath all those layers of conditioning and egoic identification.
That's the beautiful paradox that Tolle highlights. By letting go of who we think we are, by surrendering to the present moment, we actually discover our true selves, that essential being that's always been present, just waiting to be recognized. And this awakening, he suggests it isn't just about personal transformation, but what about a collective shift in consciousness that's essential for the well-being of humanity and the planet.
That's a powerful thought.
It is. So we're not just talking about individual awakening, but about a global awakening, like a shifting consciousness that could change everything.
Exactly. Tolle believes that as as more individuals awaken to their true nature, to that deeper dimension of being, we'll begin to create a world that's more aligned with love, with compassion, with interconnectedness.
And that's a future worth striving for, right?
Yeah.
A world where we're not separate from each other or from nature, where we recognize our fundamental oneness and act accordingly.
Absolutely. And it's not some, distant utopia. It's a possibility that's available to us right now, in this very moment.
Yeah.
If we're willing to open ourselves to the power of now, to the transformative potential of presence, surrender, and acceptance.
Well, that about wraps up our deep dive into Eckhart Tolle's The Power of Now.
An incredible journey.
It is. And, for everyone listening, I encourage you to explore these ideas further, see what resonates with you, to experiment with these practices in your own lives. Because as Tolle reminds us, the power to transform our world, doesn't lie in some grand external revolution, but in the quiet revelation that happens within each of us when we awaken to the truth of who we really are.
The most powerful deep dive of all. The journey into the depths of our own being.